Welcome back, students. Welcome to biology classes. Today we are going to see 11th science biology and we are going to resume the chapter 16, that is digestion and absorption. We have already covered the introductory part, and yet today we are going to see about the different digestive glands which are involved in the digestive system. So the digestive glands are three, right? First is salivary glands, second is liver, and the third is pancreas. So these are the three accessory digestive glands which are responsible for the carrying out of the digestion process, right? So starting with the first, that is salivary glands, right? So salivary glands secrete saliva in oral cavity. Now your salivary glands are present inside your mouth, that is in like between the jaw and the cheek, right? So there is presence of those salivary glands, and the function of the salivary glands is to secrete the saliva, right? And when it secretes the saliva, right, what it does is, in human beings, this salivary glands, they mix with the food and they are responsible for the digestion of the particular carbohydrates, right? So the salivary glands, right, they secrete the saliva, and in human beings there are three pairs of salivary glands. The first is parotid, second is sublingual, and the third is submandibular, right? And amongst these three, the largest salivary gland is the parotid gland, right? So the salivary gland, right, it secretes the saliva, and in this saliva there is presence of amylase, right, salivary amylase enzyme. This salivary amylase enzyme, it acts upon the carbohydrates which are present in the food. So the partial digestion of the carbohydrates takes place in the mouth only, right? So this is the full function of the salivary glands. The second accessory gland is the liver, and the liver is said to be the largest gland in the human body, right? Because this liver is going to secrete the bile juice, right? And this liver is present, or it is located in the upper right side of the abdominal cavity, right? So on the upper side of the stomach portion, right, there is presence of a liver, and it is just below the diaphragm, right? So after the diaphragm there is presence of liver, right? Now hepatic lobules, which are covered by Gleason's capsule, are structural and functional unit of liver, which is made up of hepatic cells, right? Now there is presence of specialized cells in this liver, and this liver is made up of hepatic cells, right? And this hepatic cells, right, they are said to be the structural and functional unit of the liver, right? Because they are responsible for secreting the bile juice, right? And the hepatic lobules are being covered by the Gleason's capsule, right? And in this particular lobules there is presence of the hepatic cells, and this hepatic cells, they secrete the bile juice, which is going to be stored and getting concentrated in the gallbladder. So the gallbladder is the storage bag for the bile juice, right? Now there is presence of a duct, right, that is a tube like structure which is going to carry the bile juice, and from the liver it brings to the pancreatic duct, right? So the bile duct and the pancreatic duct, they commonly open into duodenum, right, which is simply known as hepatopancreatic duct, or it is also known as common bile duct, and this all is guarded by the sphincter of Oddi, right? That is, there is also presence of the sphincter muscles to regulate the passing of the bile juice as well as the pancreatic juice, right? So the function of liver is to secrete the bile juice, which is going to do the digestion of the particular lipids, right? That is, mainly it is going to act on the lipid portion, as well as this bile duct and the pancreatic duct, right, it commonly opens into the duodenum with a common duct. For this reason, this is known as common bile duct. This is also known as hepatopancreatic duct, right? So this is the figure of the pancreas as well as the gallbladder. See, this is the storage bag of the bile juice, that is gallbladder. See, you can see over here that there is a duct, right? From from the gallbladder it is arised, and this is the pancreas, and this is where you can see is this is the duct from the liver, and here this is the common bile duct, because the pancreas is going to secrete over here as well as the liver is going to secrete over here. So as the two secretions are been passing from a common passage, for this reason this tube is, or this duct is known as common bile duct, right? And that is simply hepatopancreatic duct, right? Next, now the third accessory gland of digestive system is pancreas, and this pancreas is soft lobulated grayish pink gland, right? So it is soft in nature, it is lobulated, that is several lobes are present, it is grayish pink in color, right? And this is going to weigh about 60 grams. So the weight of the pancreas is 60 grams, and it is consisting of both the portions, that is exocrine as well as endocrine, right? So the pancreas is said to be the mixed gland because it is going to contain, or it is going to consist of exocrine glands as well as the endocrine glands, right? The exocrine portion of the pancreas secretes the pancreatic juice, which is alkaline in nature, while the endocrine part of pancreas secretes the hormones insulin and glucagon, right? So the function of pancreas is dual, right? As it is exocrine as well as endocrine. For this reason, it is the exocrine portion is related with the digestive system, right? Where it includes the alkaline pancreatic juice, which is going to contain several enzymes, right, which are responsible for carrying out the digestion of the complex food. Now, and the second, that is endocrine part, it secretes the insulin as well as the glucagon, which is mainly useful for balancing the sugar in your blood, right? So this is about the three different types of the accessory glands which are involved in the digestive system. Now we are going to see the digestion of food, right? So first we are going to see that what are the complex macromolecules which are involved in the food. So carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and nucleic acids, right? This all are present in food in the form of large and complex molecules, right? And this complex and large molecules, they are insoluble polymers, right? So insoluble polymers, that means they cannot be degraded or dissolved easily, right? For this reason, they are said to be complex in nature as well as they are insoluble macromolecules. Now, these macromolecules are converted into small monomers by the action of the enzyme. So, as you know, polymers, that is, poly means many, right? So, that is so many monomers. Mono means one, right? So, so many monomers combine with each other to form a polymer. So, when you are eating, so that food is in the form of a polymer, right? So with the help of the enzymes, or we can say the action of the enzymes, right, these polymers are converted into small monomers, right? So from the complex form, it is been converted into the simple form. So as the definition of digestion, as we saw in the previous lecture, right, that is the conversion of the complex molecules into simple absorbable forms. That is what digestion, right? So here again the polymers are the, which is complex in nature, they are being converted into monomers which are simple in nature, right? So this whole conversion is being carried out by the action of the enzymes, right? Now, in buccal cavity, teeth and tongue help in mastication and mixing of food. Mastication, that is the breakdown of the food which is taking place, and mixing of food is being carried out with the use of the saliva. So mucus which is present in saliva, it is mixed with masticated food to form the bolus. So mastication is what? Breakdown of the complex food, right? So whatever food you are eating, it does has any shape, right? For example, if you are eating a pizza, then it is having a shape, but when you are chewing it, right, so whatever tearing and grinding which is taking place in your mouth, that is what mastication, right? And this masticated food is when mixed with the mucus of the saliva. At that time, when it forms a soft food, like, or soft bolus, right, which is a soft food, we can simply say, right? So that is known as bolus. So what is exactly a bolus is, so the masticated food plus saliva, that is going to form the bolus, right? Now this bolus, it passes to pharynx, right? Now when it passes to the pharynx, pharynx, as you know, that it is a common passage from where the food as well as the air both passes, right? So after the pharynx, the esophagus comes, right? So in the esophagus, the swallowing of the food takes place, right? As well as the chemical digestion of food starts in the oral cavity by the action of the enzyme salivary amylase and lysozyme. So here, when we are talking about the digestion which is taking place in the mouth, so in the mouth, in the oral cavity, right, the chemical digestion starts because there is presence of an enzyme which is known as salivary amylase, right? So this salivary amylase, it is responsible for the digestion of the starch, right? So the starch which is present in your food, that is being, we can say, simplified into maltose. So salivary amylase breaks down the starch into the maltose, and lysozyme acts as an antibacterial agent. So it does not allow the any of the infection to occur. So two enzymes plays very important role in the oral cavity. The first is salivary amylase and the second is the lysozyme. Lysozyme's function is to prevent the infection by acting as an antibacterial agent, right? And the second enzyme is salivary amylase, which is going to do the breakdown of the starch into maltose, right? Now after the partial digestion which is taking place in the mouth of mono, like, or we can say the saccharides, right, or we can simply say as carbohydrates, after then with the help of the esophagus, it reaches to the stomach. So mucosa of stomach have gastric glands, right? Now this stomach has this gastric glands, and which is going to secrete the gastric juices. Now this gastric glands, they are made up of three types of cells, right? So there is presence of three main type of cells. The first is mucus, right? We can the peptic cells, right? Second is oxontic cells, right? And the third is the peptic cells, right? So peptic cells, oxontic cells, and the mucus cells, right? So the mucus neck cells that secrete mucus, right? Peptic cells, they secrete the proenzyme pepsinogen, and the third is the oxontic cells, which are going to secrete the HCl. So your the stomach's inner part, which is having the gastric glands, they are made up of three types of cells. The first is the mucus cells, right? Second is the peptic cells, and the third is the oxontic cells, right? The function of the mucus cells is to secrete the mucus, and this mucus does not allow the direct contact of the dilute HCl with your inner body, or we can say the inner layers of the body, right? So mucus helps in protection in relation to the acid, right? Second is the peptic cells, and these peptic cells are responsible for secreting an enzyme, we can say an inactive enzyme, which is known as pepsinogen. So this pepsinogen, it is responsible, this enzyme is responsible for the partial digestion of the proteins, right? So the digestion which is taking place in the stomach of the proteins, right, that proteins are being digested with the help of the pepsinogen enzyme, and this pepsinogen enzyme is being secreted by the peptic cells. Next is the third type of cells, that are the oxontic cells. This oxontic cells functions for the secretion of the HCl, and this HCl is dilute in nature, right? But when these three of them are interconnected with each other, right? First is, now what exactly happens, that how the mechanism of the digestion takes place, right? So here the food mixes with the gastric juice. Now, whatever bolus which has been swallowed within the esophagus, and when it reaches to the stomach, right, this food mixes with the gastric juices. So when the churning action of the muscular wall of the chyme is taking place, right, so muscular wall of the stomach, it allows the mixing of the food with the gastric juice. So once when the food is being mixed with the gastric juice, at that time it forms the chyme, right? So what is chyme? So chyme is the food when it mixes with the gastric juices upon the churning action of the muscular wall of the stomach, that is known as chyme, right? Now here what happens, I said that the three different types of cells, they are interconnected with each other, right? So HCl is being like HCl activates. So when the HCl is being released by the oxontic cells, then and then only the pepsinogen enzyme from its inactive form is getting converted to its active form, that is pepsin, right? So the pepsinogen is inactive form and it converts to pepsin, that is the active form. So the HCl is responsible for converting or for activating the pepsinogen enzyme to its active form, that is pepsin. Now this pepsin is responsible for digesting the proteins which are present in the food material, right? So it acts upon the proteins and it break down the protein into peptones and proteases, right? So the digestion, upon the digestion of proteins, it forms two things. First is peptones and second is proteoses, right? Next, the mucus and bicarbonates which are present in gastric juice play very important role in lubrication and protecting the inner wall of stomach from the action of HCl. So there should not be direct contact of the HCl with your inner wall of the stomach. For this reason, there is a protecting inner layer of mucus, right, which plays very important role, that it does not allow the direct contact of the HCl with your inner walls of the stomach. And there is also presence of a renin, right? And renin is a proteolytic enzyme, and this is found in gastric juice of infants, that is small babies, right? The newborn babies, they are only dependent on the mother's milk. So there, when the infants are there, that is small newborn babies are there, at that time in their stomach there is presence of the renin enzyme, and this renin enzyme is, it is functioning for digesting the milk protein, right? So the milk protein is casein, and that casein is being digested by the enzyme, that is renin. So this is seen in the infants, and we have already seen about the adults by the three different cells which are observed in the gastric juice, right? This is about the digestion which is taking place in the stomach. Now, the bile and pancreatic juice and intestinal juice are released in small intestine. Now, what happens is, once the food which is been partially digested in the stomach, right? But up till now, once the in the like oral cavity, the salivary amylase acted upon the carbohydrates. Second, in the stomach, the pepsin enzyme was acting upon the proteins. But here now, once the like whatever bolus was there, and when it mixed, like it was mixed with the gastric juices, right, it gets converted to a semi-solid form, right? So it forms the semi-solid form, and when it, like it is coming out of the stomach, it reaches to the first part of the small intestine, and that is duodenum. But when the food is passing, along with that food, there is also addition of the two different glands, and that is the liver and the pancreas, right? So the liver's bile duct and the pancreatic juice, right? These two secretion are also being added with the whatever is like whatever semi-solid or semi-solid uh, thing is passed from the stomach, that is all coming in the duodenum, right? So in the duodenum, along with the food, the two secretion is also entering, right? So the pancreatic juice contains several inactive enzymes, that is trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidases, amylases, lipases, and nucleases. So this all are the enzymes which are present in the pancreatic juice. Now let's see that what exactly the function of this all enzyme is, right? Now this trypsinogen, right, this trypsinogen is activated with a enzyme which is known as enterokinase. So this trypsinogen enzyme, this is the inactive form, right? So this is the inactive form, right? And this trypsinogen, when it gets activated by the help of the enterokinase, it is being converted to trypsin. So the trypsinogen is converted to trypsin with the help of the enterokinase, right? And this further activates the other enzymes of the intestinal juice. So this trypsinogen is when converted to trypsin. So this trypsin is responsible for converting the chymotrypsinogen to chymotrypsin. So this way the whole chain continues, and here what happens is this all are responsible for digesting the complex molecules into the simpler forms, right? Now the bile contains the bile pigments, and those pigments are bilirubin and biliverdin, right? So these are the two pigments which are present in the bile, right? And there is also presence of bile salts as well as cholesterol and phospholipids, right? And they are going to act upon the fats, and they are going to do the emulsification, right? That is, they are going to form two things, that is emulsification and saponification, right? So emulsification takes place, that is the digestion of the fats which is taking place. So the bile juice is going to contain the bile pigments, bile salts, then cholesterol as well as phospholipids, and this all are going to do the emulsification of the fat. So the bile juice, that is the bile, it acts upon the fat molecules, right? So it acts upon the lipids, and it is going to convert them into the fatty acids and the glycerol, right? Now the secretion of brush border cells of mucosa and goblet cells contain enzymes succus entericus, which is going to contain the variety of enzymes to complete the process of digestion. So now there is also presence of the, see, once the digestion is taking place in the small intestine, right, after that what happens is the whatever waste is passed from the small intestine, right? Now before passing the waste, right, now whatever you food you are eating, that you are eating for getting proper amount of nutrition, right? So for getting proper amount of nutrition, what you need is the whatever nutrients are present in that food, those all are going to be absorbed by your body. So once the digestion is completed, so after the completion of the digestion, the absorption of those digested food starts, right? And there is presence of the like villi, right, the microvilli in your small intestines, right, that is in the jejunum as well as ileum. These two of the small intestine parts, they are responsible for carrying out the absorption, right? So there is presence of the microvilli which are responsible for the absorption. This microvilli increases the surface area for absorption, and this way more and more absorption takes place, right? So this way the digestion completes in the first part of the small intestine, that is the duodenum, and after that the absorption is taking place. And once the absorption is completed, whatever waste material is present, this all waste material passes to the large intestine, right? So in large intestine what happens is again the absorption of the digested food is taking place, right? The absorption, see, the large intestine is responsible for absorbing the water, minerals as well as several drugs, right? So here in the large intestine, the secretion of mucus for adhering of the undigested food and lubricating it for easy passage. So the function of the large intestine is to do the absorption of the water, minerals as well as several drugs, as well as it is also responsible for passing the undigested food, making it soft, and it makes the like stool, or we can say the undigested food, in such a way that it can be easily passed out from your body, right? So this way several organs plays very important role in the function of digestion, right? So up till here I'm keeping, and next lecture we will see about the absorption of the digested food in detail, right? So I hope you are very clear with today's topic, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.